Welcome back to the Revenue Problem Solvers podcast, where we look to crack the code on growing your business by tackling the challenges that keep revenue leaders up at night. I'm Carl Ortmans, and on today's episode, we're going to dive into a fairly hot topic, and it's one that I'm really excited about. It's the topic of hiring and recruiting. Now, today's podcast is sponsored by Virtual Causeway. Virtual Causeway is a B2B go-to-market partner who help you generate more qualified leads. It speeds up your sales cycle and helps you grow your revenue, all without adding headcount. To learn more about them, visit virtualcauseway.com and mention the show for a special rate. So before we jump in, here's why today's conversation matters. Imagine taking or implementing just one strategy from today's conversation and watching your revenue metrics shift within weeks, not months. That's exactly what our goal of the podcast is. Let's talk about the challenges others are faced or are facing and how they're solving it. As I like to say, success leaves clues. And we're going to highlight those clues for you today. Now, today, I've got a really fun and special guest with me. My guest today is Mateo Polic. Mateo is the CEO and founder of Accentio, which is a boutique recruitment agency that works with companies of all sizes. He started his career with Michael Page, then he went on to work with Shopify before he started his own agency, which is Accentio. Oh, by the way, he's also an investor, and he invests in early stage startups. And on top of that, I got to say, because I found this really cool, he was a member of the 2007 Croatian national basketball team, and he's fluent in 4 languages.
That's right.
So I've had the honor of working with Mateo and becoming friends with him after we connected about a role for one of his searches. He and I have remained connected, and he's become someone that I do look to for advice in the hiring and recruitment side. And on top of all that, I got to tell you, he's one of the most genuine and down-to-earth people I think I've ever met. Mateo, welcome to the podcast, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you for those kind words. That was amazing. I haven't had an intro like that ever.
Hey, I can be your traveling hype man. I'm a big fan of yours, which I think you know.
That would be amazing. Love it.
So if we get kicked off here, can you maybe share a little bit about your world, like a bit of context? What industries, verticals do you work with? I'll say selling motion, but I know it's recruitment. But what size companies do you work with?
Yeah, so I started Accentio about 10 years ago, and we mainly work with companies that are between, let's say, 1 to 100 million in revenue. That's the sweet spot for us. It can be a early stage e-commerce company selling sleeping stuff, doing $1 million a year in revenue. It can be a $100 million accounting software and global exposure. So that's kind of our sweet spot. I would say anything from e-com, technology. Those are the 2 main areas. And we kind of cover 4 different verticals. We cover marketing, sales, product, and technology. So anything you need in those 4 areas, from mid to senior level, we do it for you.
Nice.
Yeah.
So if we kick off the topic and how we got to today's topic, if you've listened to some of them, most of it, for those of you listening, I like to ask the question to our guests is, what's a successful revenue initiative that you've led, or an existing revenue initiative or challenge that you're solving or have solved? And when Mateo and I first started talking, and we had a really good first chat, and the topic became super clear. And the topic is recruiting and the impact on revenue. And so, as I mentioned, this is an area I'm really excited to talk about because hiring has changed in front of our eyes, and it's like fundamentally has changed. So I think if I can maybe start with this with you, Mateo, what has happened in the past 16 months for recruitment to change the way that it has?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing, everybody will probably say AI. But for me, what I noticed, the biggest thing was that, let's say 4 or 5 years ago, it was really hot to, just an example, do $50 million in revenue and then have 500 employees. Oh, we are a 500-person company doing 50 million in revenue, and we're hiring 100 more. That was really hot 4 or 5 years ago. Right now, over the past couple of years, 2 years specifically, it's really hard to do 50 million in revenue with 100 employees. That's what's really hard. Automate everything, and instead of having 300 open job positions, now you have 3 open job positions, very specific ones to your company. So for example, if you look at software engineers, maybe 2-3 years ago, companies would hire probably anything from 10, 20, 30, sometimes even 50 developers. I had a company that would hire 50 developers in 1 year, and we hired a lot of them. Right now, that same company comes to me with maybe 3, 4, 5 developers that I need to hire in 1 year, very specific senior developers who know how to utilize different tools and grow the company. So that is the biggest thing that I would say changed the mindset from being very sort of like growing like crazy and having humongous amount of employees to growing like crazy, but optimizing the amount of employees and then adding AI, adding automation. So then those senior developers, for instance, in this case, can utilize those tools. And then instead of having 20 developers, now you have 2 or 3 very specialized ones who can do the same job. So that's, I think, the biggest changes. Those 2 things are the biggest changes that I've seen in the past 16 months.
It's interesting because I agree with you. And if we go back, I don't know, do you want to say 3, 4, 5, even maybe a little
Yep.
bit more than that? It was really hot to say triple, 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 double,
Yep.
double, double. That's the
Yep.
path to unicorn status. But it almost seems like once a pandemic hit, the shift became less about growth pattern, but more about profitability.
Yeah.
And so is that the pattern you're seeing for the recruitment side and how companies are starting to look at it?
I am actually. That's a big pattern, not only for companies itself, but also for employees. Let's say, for example, 3-4 years ago, you would come to a potential candidate and say, "We're hiring for a director of sales." That person would ask you, "Okay, that's great. Tell me a bit more about their growth trajectory, their sales target, their sales team." And they would want to hear that the company is tripling. They didn't care much about the actual profitability. Today, when you're hiring the director of sales, the first thing that they ask you is, tell me more about the company's finances. Is the company profitable? If not, how much money do they have in the bank? What's their run rate? So the entire landscape changed, not only for companies, but also for candidates. They're asking completely different questions these days. That's a big difference.
Like is it quite literally been because of the rise of the startups? Is it because of the globalization? Is it because of AI? Is there anything that you're looking at and going, hey, this is the thing that now has changed for these types of questions to be asked?
Yeah, I would probably say companies started downsizing. They realized that we can't keep this show on forever. We can't keep having 1,000 employees doing $50 million. We have to scale that down. I think that's the biggest thing that happened. And then probably during that same time, AI kind of came in. COVID happened. They realized, okay, we don't have enough money to cover for all these people. Then at the same time, AI came in. I think it was a perfect storm for those 2 things for them to realize we have to really be more focused. We have to be really more focused on these things. So I think it all happened, I would say, over the past 2 years. I started to notice it a lot. Before a little bit, maybe 2022, 2023, but 2024, 2025, it was pretty much all about that.
It's really interesting just to see the shift because the profitability is something that I would look at with my team was like, what's our revenue per head count? And it
Yeah.
was a conversation we had with the executive team constantly. Where are we at? Is it in a good position or not? Is our burn rate high or is it not? The days of getting, and also I think it follows, and maybe I'm wrong, but curious to your opinion.
Yeah.
It also may fall into play with the valuations of companies
Yeah.
because money isn't free anymore.
Yeah.
So is there also some alignment between what companies are now getting from an investing standpoint and how much that is, and they're
Yeah.
being a little bit more cautious with their money versus prior to the pandemic when you'd see 10x you'd be valued at 10x your run rate.
100%. I started noticing that. Now we're getting into more like the economical part, but I started noticing that as soon as the interest rates went up,
Mhm.
the of course the supply of money went down, and that's when everybody was started to scramble, sort of like, okay, where's our next funding round? And when they started realizing we can't get the funding round so easily, of course valuations went down. So everything was very logical from that standpoint. But yeah, the changes are drastic. The recruiting now versus recruiting 3 years ago versus recruiting 10 years ago. Pretty much I started 12 years ago. In 12 years, I've seen like 3-4 different markets. It's completely insane.
What do you mean by that? 3 or 4 different markets? Like what have you seen in that shift, the evolution?
Well, I started 12 years ago. So back then, let's say if you look at marketing as an example, back then e-commerce in Canada was very nascent. Things just started to pick up a little bit. So that was a new market. The channels, people didn't have so much experience with different channels, Facebook, Instagram, podcast, Twitter or X, TikTok now. There was very limited options in terms of paid. People didn't have a lot of experience in paid. So I remember when I was recruiting for a director of digital marketing back then versus today, the skill set is completely different. They didn't have these terms like T-shaped marketer or somebody who knows how to do creative and growth marketing and all the whole shebang. But so that was kind of the first market, I would say, early on, 12 years ago, 2013. Then you probably sometimes around 2018, 2019, I've seen this massive growth. Like everybody wanted to start hiring. It was the market changed. Now the director of marketing became more evolved. They're hiring a lot more. And then 2022, after COVID, that market was what we just discussed. That's a market number 3, I would say. And now this brand new market number 4, AI, and the entire landscape change. And instead of hiring 20 developers, now they're hiring 2 developers. So I've kind of seen in those 12 years, I've seen variety of different markets. And people who are in this space for much longer than I am, they're actually telling me, people who have 30 plus years of experience, they're telling me that they've never seen that in such a short amount of time.
Yeah. And even looking at it, if anybody's paid any attention to it, you start to see LinkedIn does a really good job of going, hey, you'd be a great candidate for this role. And you go, oh, interesting. Let me click on it. And you see that there's something like hundreds of people are applying. I know when I post some roles, I was getting like, I think I get 800 applicants in a period of time.
Yeah.
And so maybe the question I should be asking you is, how has the hiring process changed for companies that you're working with?
Yeah, right now you're talking today, right?
Yeah, like right now, because it does seem like things have shifted. And I was a big proponent, admittedly, I'll say it, and sorry not to cut you off, but I was a big proponent of this. Look, we don't have to have people in the office. We can have them in other places. And I think one of the things that I liked about that is the globalization. Your talent pool now expanded from your local area, because some of the smaller places you'd see, oh, I went to company A, then I went to company B, and I went to company C, and then I went to company D. But it was just sort of a recycle. I went from one to the next, and I just stayed inside my region. And once we started to see this more of the digitization of companies and having the ability to expand your reach, I think the talent density, I don't want to say became less, but you grew your total addressable market, if we want to use a go-to-market term, of who you could actually recruit.
100%. Yeah, that COVID definitely helped with that, because everybody went from 5 days in office to fully remote. And now if you're a Toronto-based company, you can now target pretty much all across Canada, maybe even in the US, but rarely, but let's say across Canada. However, right now, for instance, I would say out of the 10 searches we do, 8 or even 9 will be back in the office, at least hybrid, sometimes even full-time, 4 or 5 days a week. So it went, again, the changes of the market, you can now target the whole Canada, all the way down to 2025. Now you're again very localized in Toronto. So, but to your point, you're absolutely right. Before, let's say 2022, you would maybe get between 30 to 60 resumes on a job posting. Today, you're absolutely right. You're getting between 500 to 1,000 different resumes. So the challenges are completely different. Now, an HR manager doesn't even have the ability to go through all 1,000. And then if you're lucky, that's why maybe sometimes it happens, people don't even get any responses, because it's almost impossible to screen 1,000 resumes for one person. So that's a big challenge today. But let's say 3 years ago, we didn't have that challenge. The challenge was there was very few people in the pipeline. And then you have to go and you have to headhunt. But I mean, today you also have to headhunt, because you have 1,000, but out of those 1,000, most likely, usually about 80 to 90% of them will still be completely irrelevant. But it's still, I mean, now you have 100 potentially relevant resumes, which is a lot. And out of 100, often it happens that you will find at least 2 or 3 who are really good. But back in the day, it was very hard to find that. So I think it's just the market completely changed in that way as well, because now it's Now it's all about the volume, because there is very little, in my opinion, right now, there's very little, not a lot of opportunities out there. There's much more candidates out there. But let's say 3 years ago, there was a lot of opportunities, but very, very few candidates. So again, that's another shift that I saw in the past 2 to 3 years.
And maybe there's a question in there, is like, how come? Is it because of the rise of AI and some of these tools that can just auto apply for you, that these companies are getting so many candidates, or are they actually getting people clicking on the apply now button and going through it? Do you have any sense of like what that experience looks like for not only companies but candidates?
And I don't think it's the button itself, because the button itself was there for a long time. So it was always very easy to apply. Yeah, I think it has to do a lot with, I mean, if you look at our unemployment for youth, it's almost 10%. So you have there significantly, a lot of them are significantly unemployed. Then you have a huge rise in immigration. So a lot of people are coming to Canada. The jobs are scarce. There's not a lot of jobs out there. So everybody's fighting for that one specific job. Now, I mean, this always used to be a problem where you would, for a marketing manager, you would get somebody from, I don't know, complete logistics applying, but it was here and there. Now you have, for marketing manager positions, you have people applying from basically a lot of different areas of the business, which also is another sort of like question mark. Why is that happening? But back in the day, you would have maybe out of 20 resumes, you would have one resume from logistics for a marketing manager. Now you have people are applying logistics, sales, operations. I guess they're just sending resumes for anything, because I think there are just a lot of them are trying to find jobs, and it's not easy today. Today's market is very, very difficult. I find it extremely difficult. So if you don't bring to the client something extraordinary, it's going to be very, very hard.
So talking about the difficulties there, and maybe we turn it to because the topic we're talking about is the impact on revenue. And
yeah.
Prior to, before COVID, when the tech boom was happening, it was like one, maybe two phone calls and then job offer. It was changing so fast.
That's right.
What are you seeing as the hiring process today for many companies?
If they see a right candidate, that still is the case. They will have 2 or 3 rounds within 2 or 3 weeks maximum. We're good to go. Sometimes, though, it happens that the client is, a lot of the times, we had that before. The client would think we can find that unicorn, and let's go find the unicorn, but maybe 1 in 10. Today, a lot of clients, they also think that they can find that unicorn, and when you actually bring them 5, 6 incredible people in front of them, they like them. They like this one person. They think he or she's really good, but they always come back to you and say, well, you know what? Let's continue to look a little bit more, because I think we can probably get a few hundred or a few dozen more resumes, and somebody out there might be better. So I think that entire experience changed the expectations of clients, and now they're expecting something even better than they used to expect. Even though you potentially even have the best candidate in front of them, they're still thinking, well, there's hundreds of people out there. There might be something even better. So I think the hiring changed now in that way, that you have to sort of educate clients about the market and about these kind of situations, but you will have a lot of them who will think that there is always something better out there.
And so what is that doing to the length of time? Because, for me, doing a bunch of hiring is like, okay, we're going to post it. We'll have 1 month of, recruitment and conversations. Then we're going to go through, and it'll be a month. And then it's typically takes a person to hand in their notice, and so it's usually about a 3-month by the time you post to have them in seat.
Yeah.
Is that still the case today?
Yeah, still the case. I would say 2 to 3 months, maybe 4 if it's a really difficult position, but that did not change significantly. It's just, if you educate the client properly, and if they have the right expectations, and they don't have that sort of is there anything better out there mindset, usually no issues at all. Very similar to, that's one part that is still very similar to the past.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the shift, and so the longer it takes for somebody to be in the seat is hard. It's a challenge. And so for those companies that you kind of talked about, I went and I want to see the next unicorn, bring me more unicorns. it is remaining the same, or are you starting to see that like, is it growing at all? I guess, because then the question is, the longer the person isn't in seat, the more the impact of revenue.
Yeah.
So how are companies balancing that today?
In what sense?
The time to fill and the
Okay.
impact on revenue. So
Okay.
if we just use sort of a maybe just a simple one. If
Okay.
we pay somebody $100,000 a year,
Yeah.
just as a simple number, right? And so that breaks out to what, $8,000 a month or something.
Mhm.
And so for every month that I don't have the person in seat, well, okay, there's $8,000, but there's an opportunity cost that I'm also missing out on, and whatever, maybe there's a quotas, etc. So there's a different impact. And so how are companies looking at that today, knowing that one, they are getting more applicants than ever?
Yeah.
Two, it sounds like you're taking a similar path to hire.
Mhm.
And then number three, you're also going into this localization conversation back again. So is what's that impact looking like on these companies?
Yeah. Well, it's if they use somebody like myself versus, let's say, themselves, if they use somebody like myself, the process hasn't changed much. The process went from we have very few candidates. Mateo, can you help us? To a
Mhm.
point, we have so many candidates. This is insane. Just help us find the right person. That process with me, it's very much still the same like it was before.
Hmm.
2 to 3, sometimes 4 rounds. We get it done within 2 to 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, with their notice period, with the job posting being created. You're looking at 2 months, maybe 3 at tops. If you're doing it yourself, then you have to have somebody very good in screening resumes. I think AI is okay in screening resumes, but if you want to speed up the process, and what I'm noticing, a lot of companies who are successful at that, they have incredible in-house recruiters or hiring managers who really understand what's happening. And then they have to basically screen these resumes. I mean, AI can help them, but a lot of the times AI will leave things out. So you have to sort of have that ability to understand very quickly, what company are they coming from? What are they mentioning in their resume? Are they very numbers driven? If we're hiring for marketing director or VP of sales, are they mentioning the quotas? Are they mentioning how many people have they built? Usually for me, it takes me literally 5 to 10 seconds per resume for me to know if this person is going to be good or not. So if they have somebody like that in-house, they're going to be okay, because even if they have 1,000 resumes, they will be able to screen them very, very quickly with the use of AI. So if you're hiring through somebody like me, process is very much the same. If you're hiring internally, you just have to be a little bit better, I think, in sort of like deciphering very quickly where the candidate is coming from, what company, what they have done. You have to almost become a master of like screening these things.
It almost makes me think that the role of headhunter is and I'll say headhunter, but
Yeah.
like true recruiter, that skill set is almost becoming like what SaaS was for a little while, when it was
Yeah.
just order taking.
Yeah.
And it's maybe easier now for recruiters, in-house recruiters,
Mm.
to handle and say, well, here's my candidates because I'm leveraging AI.
Yeah.
Are you seeing those the ATSs of the world seem to be growing, and you're training the models to try to find them? Is that something that you have to start the conversation with when you talk to the companies you're working with? Is, can you tell me about your process? Are you using AI, yes or no?
Mhm.
What are the type of profile? Like, has that changed for you on how you interact with the client to find the right profile that you got to search for?
Not for me specifically, because I do all of that for them. They outsource it all to me to
Oh,
completely, don't have a headache about any of these things. And then I come to them and say, hey, these are the 5 people we absolutely have to meet. And I create a short list of 5 people. You remember, you were a part of that process with me, so you probably remembered everything. But I kind of outsource everything for them. They are completely off the hook on that one, and they just enjoy the process.
hmm.
Within a week or two, I call them, here are the 5 or 6 people. But for me, it's very important because I run a small boutique agency, so I use a lot of AI to help me automate the processes, understand who these people are. So I became very good at these kind of things. And people often ask me, how can you manage all of that with only a few people? But I often tell them, listen, it's I became very, very good with automating everything and understanding, screening things very fast, and using AI to kind of to kind of create these processes that I use for myself. So if they want to be good at that internally, they have to kind of figure out how to use different HR tools to become fast and good and automate the entire process. Only then they will be able to, especially if you have a lot of roles to fill. If you have one role to fill, it's fine. 5 roles to fill, fine. But if you have 50 roles to fill, and if you have a recruitment team of maybe 2 or 3 people, you have to become very, very good at those things.
When you're talking to the companies, is because we talked a bit about the return to office, and I'm kind of curious, for those return to office roles, has anything changed there? So maybe I'll give a bit of context of why I'm asking the question. When you started to go remote, people said, "Hey, I like this. I don't want to make I don't have to travel, etc." And now there's more of a return to. It seems like there's a return to office for some roles.
Yeah, most roles in Canada.
Most roles. Okay. And now, is there less people applying to the in office roles than remote by chance?
Yeah, I often say to my clients right now, if you are having a, let's say, 5 days a week mandate, mostly you're going to entertain 20 to 30% of the market. If you're still fully remote, you will entertain about 80 to 90%. Some people still like to go to office, and
Right.
those people are maybe 10 to 20% of the population. A lot of people still prefer remote. A lot of them move away from cities. They enjoy remote work. If you are fully in office, you're going to have more challenges for sure. So I always say to clients, depending on how difficult the search is going to be, we might have to be a little bit flexible on different things, and that's one of the biggest things that we might have to be flexible. If they're not flexible at all, then I often tell them, I will do what I can, and we'll find somebody, no problem. But just an FYI, 20 to 30% of the market is okay to go in office 5 days a week. From what I've seen, I usually meet between 3,000 to 4,000 people every year. So that's from my little kind of personal pool. 20 to 30% are still okay with 5 days in office.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I hopefully I can ask it in an intelligent way. But in the world of selling, buying committees have grown. Is that also translating to recruitment? Is the hiring team, or is the hiring committee, is that growing, or is there any change to the hiring process from the team and the number of people interviewing?
I would say no. I've seen the hiring committee remain consistent pretty much throughout. You would have normally a VP, but CMO or CEO in the first round, depending on the seniority of the person you're looking to hire. Then you would have a couple of people on a panel. Then maybe the third round is going to be a presentation. If it's something a bit more senior, if you're looking for a CEO, you will have to involve the board. There might be some psychological testing, but that was always there. So the hiring committee has remained in my experience, pretty constant throughout 12 years that I'm doing this.
Interesting. And it's just a shift, right? Like, things, we start to see the evolution between groups and roles and etc. So as you're talking to companies and as they're putting out their searches, are they starting to say, "Hey, Mateo, I want you to find this exact person," or like, and maybe I'll ask it in a different way. We're hiring for, I think we said fintech is one of the things, right?
Yeah.
I need you to find somebody that has experience in the vertical. They need to have some level of, maybe they've been an investment broker or something, but they need to have specific skill sets. Is there any push towards the verticalization with roles, or is it similar to like the John McMahons and those that have say, "Hey, I'm just going to hire really smart people and they can figure out the vertical"? Is there anything that you're seeing there that both companies and and job searchers that are listening to this can go, "Oh, okay, now I see why I might not get an interview"?
Yeah, I would say you're referring to basically any department, right? Like marketing, sales. Yeah, I think that remained pretty standard as well. People just want to hire the best, the smartest in their respected field. So if we're hiring for a VP of sales, that pretty much remained the same. Everything is, we're looking at a couple of things. We're looking at, similarities in industries. We're looking at the growth they were able to drive. We're looking at the teams that they manage, their personality, their executive presence. So we're still looking at very much the most of the kind of similar things, along with them kind of being, of course, one of the best in that field. So that particular part, I would say it's very much the same since I started doing this.
That's, I mean, it's good to hear, because obviously the skill sets are skill sets. You see people become more specific with certain things. Actually, there's being part of Pavilion, there was somebody posted something and said, hey, we're looking for a new CRO, but they have to have Bitcoin, how do they say it? Bitcoin exchange experience. And you're like, okay, that's like needle in a haystack. It feels like
it is, because you only, but that's where you benefit from headhunters like myself. You only have maybe 5 to 20 companies you can poach from, and that's where that relationship that I might have with people like yourself, that I've been, because I speak with dozens of people every week. Then those relationships matter. So if I hire Mateo, Mateo can only go after 7 potential companies. And you then use those connections and that network to hopefully poach that specific person. But yes, those are very difficult roles to fill. Sometimes they can take a while. And if you are not able to find somebody from that very specific company, because maybe there's only a couple of them, then you have to educate the client to be okay with other industries. Maybe somebody from the gaming industry will understand some sort of Bitcoin exchange. Maybe they haven't done that exactly that thing, but maybe it's going to be very similar in the gaming space, somebody from a gaming business. So that's something that you have to then work with the client, educate them, go back and forth to find the right person. But I've seen a lot of those kind of situations, and you'll be surprised when people, when clients are okay to, I'll give you the best example. I always remember this example. I was hiring for a very big automotive company, and they wanted somebody from automotive experience as well. So I provided them the short list of 6 candidates, and 5 of them had some sort of automotive background. One didn't, but I remember saying to the VP, I said, please, you have to meet this individual. She's absolutely incredible. She came from a legal background. She was pretty much doing marketing for law companies. And I said to him, I said, you absolutely have to meet her. She's incredible. Guess what? She started the interview process with competing with 5 people from the automotive industry. She crushed it. Never worked in automotive space, got the job. So sometimes it really doesn't matter. Oftentimes, actually, really doesn't matter, although they want that. But if a person is really smart and they really know what they're doing, they can pick up the industry in a very short amount of time.
I agree with you, and I think that's something that is overlooked. And funnily enough, I've been asked many times about what's kind of profile or what I think. When you start hiring into salespeople, like if you have an athletic background, like that tells me a whole lot about you, and it's a skill set that is really interesting. When you get into some of the marketers and etc., it kind of become a little bit more the world of marketing is so big, and which role are you trying to fill, and the T-shaped marketer and all these other things that we're talking about. And so the skill sets are a challenge to try to really hone in on. But when you start to find the right person, you go, oh, you know what? They fit the culture. They've done these things. There are similarities. I'm sure that they can pick it up. And like you said, you want to find the best people to be part of it. So anyways, I'm hearing the dings go off, and we're already 35 minutes in. So
exactly. I have a call in 10.
Okay, this went super fast. So as we sort of look to move towards the end, I like to ask the question: everybody likes new, nobody likes different. And when you're doing both at the same time, it can cause either friction or uncertainty. So for companies that are thinking about the recruitment or working with agencies and the hiring, and they go, you know what? I listen to Mateo, and I got to think I've got to fix something. What are 2 or 3 actionable things that you would suggest to them? So on Monday morning, they come in the office, they go, okay, this is what I'm going to do.
Okay. From just as a company or from a hiring standpoint?
Either one. I think that's probably two good tracks.
Yeah, maybe we can cover both. Yeah. So yeah, if you're a company, I would probably say one of the biggest things that I'm noticing right now is companies are really trying to hire less and hire better. So hiring the best marketing director who is able to manage multiple different channels, and they're also very hands-on. And so kind of looking into your company, understanding who do we have, are we completely optimizing their skill set, are they doing the most efficient job, if not, are we able to be better with a different type of profile, with maybe less people. Very few times you will see that people will say, or CEOs will say, yeah, we are now better because we have more people. So I'm noticing now they're saying, yeah, we're better because we optimized, we became more efficient. So I would kind of look, if I was a CEO, I would look into that. Are we efficient? Can we do better? How is our marketing doing? How is our sales doing? Are we maybe overcrowded on the engineering side? That's what I would do in terms of if I was a CEO coming on Monday, looking into my business. And then if I'm in HR and trying to, or even a CEO, if I'm trying to kind of make my hiring processes more efficient, I would say I would kind of give them a much longer answer here. You really have to see, first of all, how long does it take you to hire somebody? Does it take you 2 weeks or 3 weeks, or does it take you 3-4 months? How often do you lose candidate in the process? How many people you have to interview before you hire somebody? So all of that will kind of give me a clue. Let's say if I'm advising as a consultant, all that will give me a clue how successful you are in hiring. So you have to kind of look into a lot of different things. What the job posting is. For example, job posting can do wonders. If you have an amazing job posting versus a standard job posting, you can see big differences, and you can have much better candidates apply because they were like, wow, I actually really resonated with this job posting, just because you added maybe a story how you created this company, or you kind of created some sort of a synopsis of where you want to be, or maybe added a YouTube video where a CEO is speaking about things. So small little details like that can actually do wonders. So if I was advising them on that's where I would start, and then I would of course add much more along the way.
Interesting. I heard you talk about how I heard you say that is there's companies are looking to become more efficient or lean in how they're operating. And then the other thing is, tell a great story, have it resonate, make sure that the job description just isn't one that you pulled out of ChatGPT, and actually like put it and align it to your company and your values is sort of how I heard that.
100%.
Awesome.
And I'm a big believer. One last thing I will leave you with. I'm a big believer in feedback. You and I kind of just talked a little bit about that. If a company is providing feedback, in the end, they will have, in my experience, much better results, because the word of mouth goes a long way. And if somebody didn't have a good experience with you during the process, it can actually hurt you long run. So the ones, and it just takes 1 extra second or 1 extra minute to respond. But oftentimes companies, they're like, I don't have time for this, or I'm not interested in this. But the more you keep doing these things, the more you service your candidates better, the better it's going to be for your business. So I always, even in my recruitment business, I always try to respond to everybody, make sure I give them the feedback, prepare them. Listen, that takes time. But if somebody is in HR operating your HR, you also then have to look at them. Are they able to kind of manage all of that and represent my company to the end user in the best possible way? And if they can't, then it's also maybe a time for a change. But if they can, then you have an amazing person in your hands.
Well said.
Yeah.
So I know we have to get you out of here. If somebody said, hey, you know what? I really like this, Mateo, I want to talk to you more about this. Where would you say people, hey, come and find me here and you can talk to me more?
Yeah. LinkedIn is the best. Mateo Polic. And that's the LinkedIn link. And you can ping me anytime. I'm pretty responsive. This, Carl. If you reach out to me, I'll respond usually within a day. So I'm there.
And he's genuine when he says that. He's really great, and hopefully you can hear that. Mateo and I have spoken many times. We continue to talk, and I think the world of him. He runs a great agency, and he does an incredible search. He's very thorough, so you wouldn't get it wrong. Awesome. That wraps up another episode of the Revenue Problem Solvers podcast. I want to thank you, Mateo, for sharing these invaluable insights, strategies you can put into action. Remember, success leaves clues, and every revenue problem has a solution. Sometimes you just need the right conversation to find it. Until next time, it's Carl with Revenue Problem Solvers, helping you turn obstacles into opportunities. Thank you for investing your time with us today, and see you on the next one.